one of the most important questions someone can answer once you're getting into retirement is, how should I take those withdrawals? How should I take the money that I have accumulated through the accumulation phase of my life, my whole life, and grown, my pot of money to X dollars? How should I use those X dollars and take that money from that, so I'm doing it as wisely as possible and doing it, in the smartest way possible? We're going to discuss that. There's three major approaches, and we're going to discuss all three of them real quick. First, if you don't already have a copy of my book, Safe Money Retirement, Your Game Plan for Success, it talks about all three of these approaches and how they interact with each other. I'm going to talk about that really quick in this segment, but it goes into more detail. Get your free copy right now, safemoneyretirement.com. Or just give us a call anytime, 833-413-SAFE, S-A-F-E, that's 7233. All right, the three major approaches to doing withdrawals in retirement. Number one, the structured, systematic withdrawal approach, okay? Now, this is the one that most people think of when they think of like the 4% rule. Or, I'm just going to start taking withdrawals from my accounts, and it's what I call IFCOME. It's great as long as the market doesn't have a major event, or you need to take a big withdrawal out at the same time the market's down, because that can get you into the death spiral like what happened to my father. So I'm not a really huge fan of the structured systematic withdrawal approach. Plus, back in the 80s, it was postulated that you could do with 4%. Well, there's actually a study by Dr. Wade Pfau, and you can get that study right on my website, safemoneyretirement.com, that kind of refutes that, looking at, and he uses numbers. He's not just saying, hey, I don't think so. That says you really might want to be closer to 2.5 or 3, or maybe even a little less, depending on your situation, to really give you a really close to 100% chance of making it. Now, again, it's still not 100%. And that's why I'm not, number one, that's why I'm not a huge fan of that approach. But number two, okay, so we're talking 2.5 to 3. Even if we were at 4% withdrawal, you can do that, and that's an IFCOME. It may last. Or you could put it into a guaranteed lifetime income annuity, and those pay out literally starting almost day one at 5.5 or 6% plus per year. Now, rates change all the time. I'm talking about what they are right now, but you're getting more of a payout, and you're getting that guaranteed for as long as you're breathing. That's why I'm not a huge fan of that first one. So on to the second one, the time segmentation approach. Now, I do use this. So this is actually, it's also, some people call it the bucket approach. I've got the bucket approach as something a little different in my book, but same idea, that basically what it is we look at your retirement in 3 sections. So for example, let's look at the first 10 years of retirement. If you were to retire at 65 to 75. All right, a lot of people call that the go-go years, so we're going to need extra money there because you're going to be doing the cruises and the vacations and helping the kids and all that stuff, grandkids in college, all that stuff. So we plan for more there. Well, then the next 10 years, 75, 85, are what we call the slow-go years. You can still do all that stuff, you just don't want to anymore. So we can, have your income go down a little bit, but we've also got to make sure that we have planned for inflation. Because inflation, while it does now seem like it's starting to ease a little bit, I don't see it going anywhere anytime soon. So we need to plan for that. And then have a third bucket that's actually 85 plus. That would be the no-go years. Now, hopefully you're still going. I'm just generalizing, but and we plan for that. And that is going to be more, long-term care expenses and things like that. And we can set it up. And I do that. That is part of what I do. Now, the third major approach is, there's several different names for it. I call it flooring. Some call it safety first. Some call it essential versus discretionary. So essentially what this one is, this is making sure you have a floor. And what that means is you've got enough income to cover your basic expenses every single month, rest of your life. And we can build in things, like I said, with the time segmentation approach that actually allows the income to grow over time to keep up with inflation and cost of living and all that kind of stuff. So I do actually a mixture of the flooring approach and the time segmentation approach when I'm doing an income plan for a client of Safe Money Retirement. We look at what are you going to need immediately, and we make sure we get you that in guaranteed lifetime income, not, boy, I sure hope nothing happens and we'll have enough, if come. So let's make sure we get you guaranteed income. That's what you need right away. So that's the flooring approach. But I go a step further because I don't want to just do that because that floor is going to change, right? I mean, you will never get less than that, but how much you need is going to change because inflation, because cost of living, because, someone's going to need something. So let's make sure we build in the time segmentation on top of the flooring and make sure that you've got the ability for that income to grow in the future whenever that need is, whether it's 2 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. So that's what I do. So real quick recap, the three major approaches, the structured systematic withdrawal approach. Again, I'm not a huge fan of that. Now, when I say I'm not a huge fan of that, I'm just talking right now, I'm also just talking about income. So that withdrawal approach doesn't have anything to do with growth plans. We're just talking about income. So like I said, that's why I'm not a big fan of just taking structured withdrawals out because it's if come. Yes, it might last based on historicals, but historicals don't mean that's what's going to happen the next 20 or 30 years because that's what's happened the last. We hope it does for all of our sakes, but that doesn't mean it's going to. So that's why I like to have guaranteed income. And I use a version, my own version of the last two, which is the flooring approach and the time segmentation approach. So flooring, let's make sure we get your income, how much it needs to be when you retire, that's your floor. But then like I said, we also need to have a few extras that can pop on there that can continue to grow until you need them in the future to overcome the inflation, to overcome the extra added expenses, maybe of long-term care. And also in some of those, especially the longer term ones, we look at possibly even having some long-term care benefits tied into them. Now, I'm not talking about a long-term care policy. That's a whole other discussion. I'm talking about a benefit tied into that guaranteed lifetime income plan that can potentially make that plan double in certain situations if you're in a long-term care situation. That's something that we can discuss individually. What you need to do is you just need to figure out between those three approaches, which sounds the best for you. Would you rather, have the opportunity for more growth and we'll just take money from it and hope? Or would you rather know that you've got a floor and know that you've got more growing that you can turn on in the future to make sure your retirement is as safe as possible?
The preceding information does not represent tax, legal, or investment advice. Surrender charges apply to base contracts. Optional lifetime income benefit riders are used to calculate lifetime payments only and are not available for cash surrender or in a death benefit unless specified in the annuity contract. Fees may apply. Guarantees are based on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the insurance company. No information presented today should be acted upon without meeting with a qualified and licensed professional. Obviously, by calling us now, you are just taking the first step towards protecting your retirement. It's important that you read all insurance contract disclosures carefully before making a purchase decision. Rates and returns mentioned on this program are subject to change without notice.